40,000 cases. That's 3 times what we'd normally see this time of year. Let's bring in influenza virologist Kirsty Short. Kirsty, why is this flu season so bad?
Yeah, look, we don't fully understand what's all the reasons behind this, but what we do know is that this has been really unusual timing. So normally we think of flu as a winter disease, and we're seeing the peak in these cases in sort of summer and autumn. So there's probably a lot of factors that contribute to this. This may just reflect the fact that in 2018 we had a really mild flu season, so maybe not enough people have protective immunity against the virus. It may be that people have been travelling to the Northern Hemisphere, picking up flu there, bringing it back here. It's probably a combination of lots of different reasons, but it's certainly a really unusual time of the year to have so much influenza activity.
What about vaccination numbers? Are they down for this time of year?
Yeah, so what we know, what we have with vaccination is it's really the best method that we have to protect against flu. And in 2018, we had really high vaccination uptake rates. And that probably reflects the fact that 2017 was a very severe season. So a lot of people were highly motivated to get vaccinated. What we're seeing now is because these cases are really outside of our usual flu season, most workplaces and systems like that are only now starting to roll out their vaccines. So it's not necessarily that people aren't getting vaccinated, it's again just coming at a very unusual time of the year.
And this strain of flu that we're seeing, is it more dangerous, more serious, or is it just that we're seeing more cases?
Yeah, so the sorts of flu that we're seeing in this unusual peak is the type of flu called influenza A, and it's a mix between the 2 types of influenza A we normally see circulating in the human population, so H3N2 and H1N1. At present, there doesn't seem to be any indication that these strains are significantly more dangerous than what we've seen previously. It's really just we've had a high number of cases.
Now, you've also been involved in new research which links obesity to the flu.
Yeah, so definitely one of our research areas is trying to understand what makes flu a severe disease for some people. And what we know is that metabolic conditions like obesity and diabetes can increase your risk of not only being hospitalized with the flu, but potentially dying from the flu. So what we really try and understand is why this is happening and how can we prevent it in these patient populations.
Okay, thank you so much for your time tonight, Kirsty.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Investigators are right now examining the data recorder retrieved from the Russian passenger plane that burst into flames on Sunday. The information will be reviewed against the pilot audio recordings and witness statements. At least 41 passengers died in the fire, including 2 children and a member of the cabin crew. Tiger Woods has been awarded America's highest civilian honour after his recent comeback. President Trump presented the Masters champion with the Medal of Freedom. And just in tonight, US actress Pamela Anderson has urged people to support Julian Assange after visiting him in a London prison. The WikiLeaks founder is currently awaiting a hearing on a US extradition request.
Obviously, it's been very difficult to see Julian here, and to make our way through the prison to get to him was quite shocking and difficult. He does not deserve to be in a supermax prison. He has never committed a violent act. He's sacrificed so much to bring the truth out, and we deserve the truth. And that's all I can say. I'm sorry, I feel sick. I feel nauseous.
Tensions between China and the US are escalating over new claims China has backtracked on commitments made in trade talks. It follows Donald Trump's tweets threatening the superpower with additional tariffs. NBC's Tracy Potts is in Washington, D.C. Tracy, negotiations are scheduled to resume later this week.
It tells you Right. But the timing of the president's threat could cause a real problem and throw a wrench into those negotiations. The president is threatening to raise tariffs from 10 to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. That's on top of the tariffs that we've already imposed, the tariffs that China has imposed on the U.S. And the whole point of these negotiations, Angela, was for the United States and China to work things out. But now in the middle of that, President Trump is threatening more tariffs. If, in fact, that's the case, some experts say it could derail the negotiations. It could cause China to try to slow things down so that they don't get to a resolution. And the new issue here is that those tariffs would be imposed by midnight Friday. So at the end of the week, just as these negotiations were supposed to wrap up.
So the clock is ticking. Now, some analysts have suggested this could all be a negotiating ploy by President Trump to ramp up the pressure on China to get a better deal for the US. Is Trump playing a risky game using hardball business strategies in this tense international environment?
It's a good question, and we certainly have heard reports that China is not really paying much attention to the president's threats, but focusing more on the trade teams, the negotiating teams that are trying to work out this trade deal, that they are familiar with President Trump very publicly trying to affect what's going on behind closed doors. But the issue here seems to have been, according to the U.S., China reneging on things that they had agreed to do. The U.S. Trade Representative, the U.S. Treasury Secretary all saying that if things get back on track, they won't impose these tariffs on Friday. But just the threat could certainly create a different environment for those negotiations set to resume in just a couple of days.
Indeed. OK, thank you so much. Tracy Potts in Washington, D.C. For more on how these trade talks could impact Australia and our economy, I'm joined by Seven Finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, this could be a lose-lose for us.
Yes, and we're actually in quite a difficult situation. On the one hand, if the trade talks collapse, that would be negative for China's economy. Anything negative for China's economy is negative for us. Just to put it in perspective, about a third of our exports go to China. Furthermore, global share markets, including here in Australia, are priced in the expectation that there will be a trade deal. So if there's no trade deal, we can expect to see a big sell-off in shares immediately afterwards. Now, on the other hand, if there is a trade deal, one part of that will be that China will have to commit to buy a lot more products and services from the United States. And some of that will be at the expense of Australia. Now, two sectors that they'll be particularly focused on are agriculture and energy. And that's particularly bad news for us because that's where a lot of our exports to China are concentrated.
So what's our best case scenario?
Right. OK, so at the moment, the talks are bilateral talks just between the US and China. What would be best of all for us is if they expanded to become multilateral talks, so not just between the US and China, but including Australia and other smaller trading partners of China. The problem here is that President Trump has made it clear on several occasions that he is not a fan of multilateral trade agreements. He calls the World Trade Organization a catastrophe, for example. So he's just fighting right now for the US terms of trade with China, and we have no reason to believe he's going to try and start fighting for Australia or anybody else as well. Realistically, therefore, probably the best case scenario we can hope for is that it's a Goldilocks scenario. So there is some sort of trade deal that goes ahead, but not one that forces China to reprioritise too many of its purchases from Australia to the United States.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Doesn't sound good. Thanks, Gemma.
Okay.
Still to come, Lady Gaga's red carpet striptease. See how that unfolded on the Met Gala pink carpet. Why an out-of-this-world photograph is tonight's final frame. Plus, we'll have all of Wednesday's weather next on the latest from 7 News.
It's never happened before. Two teams, two rooms, exactly the same.
Do we have the same bed? Oh my God, we have the same rug. The floor, bed head, all the same ideas.
But in the early room reveal, which room will win?
This is my wildest dream.
New House Rules, tomorrow 7:30 on 7.
Can I help her? Sure, I give relief from sore throat, but could I give her more? With zinc!
And vitamin C!
We become Vicks Vapor Drops Immune Support. New Vicks
Vapor Drops Immune Support. For nose, throat, cough, and now immune support.
What a beautiful day! When we're together, we can only feel better.
New Vicks Vapor Drops Immune Support.
Toyota Camry Hybrid. 2018 Drive Car of the Year. Oh, what a feeling. Toyota.
Welcome to our Lipton Tea Factory, where the sun soaks the leaves with 4,000 hours of sunshine before we pick them at the peak of freshness for a rich natural taste and aroma in every cup of Lipton.
The MS Dream Home Lottery is back, and if you secure your tickets today, you'll be in all major prize draws. A dream $2.6 million home in a location of your choice, or $2.6 million of gold. 3 $100,000 early bird prize draws and 20 $10,000 bonus prize draws. Get your tickets at msdreamhomelottery.com.au.